All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're talking about one of the most powerful tools out there in the AI world, Google's Gemini Developer API. We're going to break down what it is, what makes it so special, and how you can start using it.
Okay, so before we go any further, we really need to get a handle on one key term, API. It stands for Application Programming Interface. The simplest way to think about it, it's like a translator that lets different software programs talk to each other. You know, it's the rule book that developers follow to plug the awesome power of one application directly into another.
Now, this is absolutely crucial to understand. The Gemini chatbot you might have used online, that's the website, right? That's the thing you visit. But the Gemini API, which is what we're focused on today, that's the powerful AI engine that developers use to build that exact same intelligence directly into their own applications.
All right, let's pop the hood and see what's going on. The Gemini API is the brainchild of Google DeepMind. That's Google's flagship AI research lab. It is the official interface that lets developers tap into Google's most powerful AI models and just build them directly into their own software.
And make no mistake, this is a major player in a really competitive field. It's going head-to-head with the APIs that power those other tools, like ChatGPT and Claude. This is basically Google's heavyweight contender in the AI race.
So, what really makes this API a game changer? I mean, what's so special? It really comes down to two incredible superpowers that give it a serious competitive edge.
First up is something called native multimodality. Now, I know that sounds really technical, but the concept is actually pretty straightforward. See, unlike older models that could only really handle text, Gemini was built from day one to understand text, images, audio, and even video files all at once, in a single go. You don't need separate models for different types of media anymore. It's a huge deal.
The second superpower is its absolutely massive memory, or what developers like to call the context window. The latest versions can process up to 2 million tokens of information at one time. I mean, that number is just staggering. Okay, but what does that huge number actually mean for you or for a developer? What can you really do with a 2 million token context window? Well, 2 million tokens translates to an absolutely incredible amount of information. We're talking about the equivalent of 1,500 pages of text. That's like feeding the AI an entire epic novel. It can also process a full 2-hour movie. Think about that. A developer could build an app that automatically creates highlight reels or a searchable transcript of every single line of dialogue. And for coders, it can analyze 30,000 lines of code all in a single prompt and answer questions about it instantly.
Now, with all that power, you might be thinking, okay, this has got to be incredibly complicated to use. But Google has actually designed a workflow that makes the whole process surprisingly straightforward, even for people who aren't expert coders.
The workflow is just designed to be super efficient. So you start by getting your API key. Then you can immediately start prototyping your idea in Google's AI Studio. And this is a huge time saver because you can test prompts, you can drag and drop files, and you could do all of this without writing a single line of code. Then, once you're happy with how it's working, the studio literally generates the code for you to integrate right into your application, where you can even fine-tune the model to match your own specific style.
Okay, so how much does all this power cost? Well, Google has a very aggressive pricing strategy with 2 main tiers, and listen up, because there is a critical difference between them that you absolutely need to know.
So, the most crucial point is right here, in that last row. The free tier is fantastic for experimenting, for just trying things out. You get access to incredibly powerful models like Gemini 1.5 Pro for $0. But, and here's the catch, you're paying with your data. Google can use your prompts and the outputs from that free tier to train their future models. So for any serious, any commercial, or any private application, you absolutely must use the paid tier. That's where your data remains completely private, just for you.
And this brings us to what might be the most important part of this entire explainer: using this incredible power safely and responsibly.
So, beyond that huge privacy issue, developers need to be aware of a few other risks. There's something called prompt injection. That's basically when malicious users try to trick your AI into doing something it's not supposed to do. And you have to remember that these models can hallucinate. They can confidently just invent facts or details that are totally wrong. And that means any application that relies on factual accuracy absolutely requires a human verification step. If you take away only one single thing about safety from this entire explainer, please let it be this: never, ever
handle confidential user data or company secrets on the free tier. It is just not worth the risk.
So, what's the bottom line here? Look, the Gemini API is an incredible choice for developers who need to analyze massive amounts of content, especially video. And that cheaper Flash model is perfect for high-volume tasks. But your number one priority? It must always be data privacy. Be careful and use the paid tier for anything even remotely sensitive.
So we've broken down the engine, we've explored its incredible power, and we've highlighted the critical guardrails for using it responsibly. The technology is here and it's more accessible than ever. And that leaves just one final, provocative question. Now that you know what's under the hood, what will you build with it?